Thanks very much for joining. I'd like to welcome everyone to the 19th Oxford Human Rights Festival and the screening of the documentary Never Surrender. I'm Juliet Carpenter, a Senior Research Fellow at Oxford Brookes, and I'll be chairing the session this evening. The aim of the Oxford Human Rights Festival is to raise awareness of human rights issues through the arts, which include film, performance, talks, workshops, and exhibitions. Founded in 2003, the festival was initiated by postgraduates, researchers, and staff at the Centre for Development and Emergency Practice, CENDEP, which is part of the School of Architecture at Oxford Brookes University. The festival also collaborates with and welcomes community groups and organisations to take part in the festival. Before we begin our event today, I have a bit of housekeeping. All participants have been muted, and our community space will be the chat box, where we'll be asking you to share your reflections on the film. We ask you to be respectful with interactions in the chat box. If you have any particular questions you'd like to address to the panellists, please put them in the chat and we'll relay them to the panel. We're also recording the welcome and discussion, so those who aren't able to make it today can watch it across social media sites. Please turn off your camera if you don't want to be recorded. We'll only be publishing speaker view. The theme of this year's festival is disruption. Recently, we've all experienced the disruption of the pandemic. It was this time last year that the festival was cancelled as we went into lockdown at the beginning of the 18th festival. This year's event is special in that it's fully online for the first time in 19 years. And it comes with a silver lining in the sense that we're able to offer and take our platform to a global audience. The festival is a space for discussion, new ideas, and sharing of experiences, a space for coming together. So we're delighted to be part of the festival. Tonight, we're going to be watching and discussing the film Never Surrender, directed by Reza Shirazi, a researcher at Oxford Brookes. Reza made the film during his time as a Marie Curie Fellow at UC Berkeley in San Francisco, and since 2020 has been screening the film on both sides of the Atlantic. In a minute, the panel will introduce themselves, and then we'll screen the film, which lasts just under an hour, after which we'll have a Q&A and discussion session. So to discuss the film tonight, we've been joined by a panel of experts who I'd like to introduce now in alphabetical order, starting with Michele Lancione. Michele is a professor of urban studies at the Urban Institute at Sheffield University. Michele, would you like to say a few words?
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I guess I'm here because, as Reza did, I also recorded and directed a film based on my research around addictions, and I very much look forward to see Reza's film tonight. So thank you for having me.
The second panelist tonight is Michelle Pierce, who's Executive Director of Bayview-Hunters Point Community Advocates in San Francisco. Michelle, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. Again, I'm Michelle Pierce, and I am featured. I might even say I have a starring role in this film, so I'm very excited to bring this across the Atlantic to you guys. It's a troubling thing, especially since San Francisco is seen as the spotlight for urban planning and how to do that in economic development in ways that benefit the municipality. However, they do extremely harm the community and sometimes even the people moving in. So I'm very excited about this film and working with Reza and Juliet and Michele. So thank you guys very much.
Thanks, Michelle. Next on the panel is Sergio Roosblad, who's an award-winning documentary filmmaker and journalist and editor of tonight's film, and he's also based in San Francisco. Sergio, would you like to say a few words?
Of course, yeah. Thank you so much for your introduction, and well, good to see everyone here. My name is indeed Sergio Roosblad. I'm a journalist and documentary filmmaker based in San Francisco. Worked on this film together with Reza, which was born. This collaboration was kind of like born out of another film that I had made, and that's how Reza and I met. Which was about a freeway interchange and the effects of people in the community surrounding that freeway interchange. And I'm really excited to finally to show the film tonight and to hear what everyone has to say and to discuss the themes and topics in this film.
Thanks very much. Thanks a lot. And finally, I'd like to introduce Reza Shirazi, who's director of Never Surrender and reader in Sustainable Urban Development at Oxford Brookes. Reza, over to you.
Hello, everybody. First of all, thank you for joining this event. I have also to thank Oxford Human Rights Festival for organizing this film screening. As Juliet said, my name is Reza Shirazi. I'm a reader in Sustainable Urban Development at the School of the Built Environment at Oxford Brookes University. And before watching the film, I would like to share with you some background information about the research and the film. From January 2018 to January 2020, I was Marie Curie Global Fellow at the Institute of Urban and Regional Development at UC Berkeley. I received funds from European Commission to do research around urban justice and environmental justice in Bayview-Hunters Point. One of the core arguments that I made and around which I developed my research, and as you will see is what I wanted to show in this film, is that the shipyard redevelopment project that is presented and discussed in this film has been a site of what I call it discursive battle or discursive conflict between the global and the local. And by global, I mean all federal, state, and city agencies and authorities. And the local, by local, I mean the community members, the residents, and also activists, over issues around safety, health, gentrification, and environmental justice. And to address this argument, I conducted two sets of research and data collection. On the one hand, I reviewed and analyzed hundreds of newspaper articles, mainly local newspapers, official documents, reports, and also conducted around 50 interviews with residents and activists and local authorities. And the result of this type of data collection will be published as journal articles and hopefully a book. And I have also published 6 newspaper articles in SF Bayview newspaper, which are available online. I will post the link to my project website on chat, so you can get access to that. And if you like, you can read them. But as part of my fieldwork also, I attended all community meetings, town hall meetings, protests, press conferences, and the like that took place around the shipyard redevelopment project. I started recording these events, and this generated around 60 hours of original recordings. And my documentary film is the result of this observation, basically. It narrates the community fight and struggle for environmental justice during May 2018 to January 2020, when I returned to Oxford. During the panel discussion, of course, I'm happy to explain why we have chosen this format and structure for the film. But now, before you watch the film, I wanted to just highlight a couple of points. For example, we avoided some conventional elements of documentary filmmaking, such as having a voiceover, because I didn't want to make any bold conclusion or support or reject any statements made by different people in the film. And also we avoided adding music, for example, because except the music of the events themselves, for example, people chanting, you will see that the archival materials are very limited and we use them when necessary. And during the recording, I also decided to be a passive observer and don't interfere in the reality and in the events. And the reason was that what was happening in front of my eyes was so powerful and telling that I really didn't have anything to add to it. And as you will see also, I have dedicated the film to the people of Bayview-Hunters Point. I have learned and I'm still learning a lot from them. And this film is only a thank you to appreciate their fight and struggle for justice. And now with this, I would like to invite you to watch the film. Thank you again and enjoy the film. But before we start screening, I have to make an announcement that we are going to screen the film through Zoom. But for any reason, for internet or whatever reason, if you had any problems watching the film fluently, then we are also going to post the link, the YouTube link in the chat, so that in this case, you can also use the link to YouTube and watch the film from there. But anyway, we are going to screen it through Zoom as well. Okay.
Great. Thanks, Reza. So if you find that the Zoom version is a bit juddery at all, then please do use the YouTube link that's in the chat there. So and then just come back and join the call when the film's finished. I wonder if I could bring everyone back, the panelists back to the table, as it were. Reza and the others. I wonder if the others are going to be spotlighted as well. Or perhaps, I think gradually everyone will come back to the table. That's great, thanks. And I wonder if we could just start by talking about some of the themes of activism and in particular around disruption. The theme of the 2021 Oxford Human Rights Festival is disruption. On the festival website, disruption has been described as the action of preventing something, especially a system, process, or event, from continuing as usual or as expected. The action of completely changing the traditional way that an industry or market operates by using new methods or technology. And the film documents a community fighting for environmental justice, and we observe that community members and activists disrupt the system, in this case, the Navy, regulatory agencies, the city, in order to challenge and delegitimize their narrative around the safety of the shipyard. So the first question to the panel is, how do you see the role of disruption in the success of this community fight for environmental justice? And what has the Bayview-Hunters Point community achieved by this disruption? And I wonder, perhaps Reza, as the director of the film, you might like to answer that first, to hear your views on that.
Yes. Okay, you hear me, right? Okay, yeah, thank you very much. You know, this is, it was also a coincidence that, this Oxford Human Rights Festival's theme is disruption. And this is also what I really observed during my research in San Francisco, because my conclusion or my understanding from the community activism, which has lasted in the case of the shipyard for over 20 years, maybe 25, even 30 years, was that the community has used different ways and different methods and different tools just to disrupt the system, because the system wanted the shipyard to be developed. The system always claimed that everything is fine. The system claimed that everything is safe. We are doing the right job, the right thing, and everything is going to be okay. But they have found different ways to just challenge this narrative. And they have used, for example, the protest, which was a very conventional way of disrupting the system. But they have used different tools. For example, the commenting, you have also noticed that even if they are giving just 1 minute, or in some cases, when it is local community gathering, 2 minutes for comment, they are really mobilize themselves to comment and also challenge the narrative, the governing or the dominant narratives. They have also used, for example, different types of petitions. Remember that, of course, most of them are ignored and don't lead to the desired result, but they have used the petitioning. For example, they did petition to revoke the license of Tetra Tech. I think it was 2007 or so, but it was not successful, but they tried it and they did their best to do that. And they also using these litigations or legal challenges. For example, in several cases, they challenged the environmental impact reports of the development, and they made a delay in the approval, in the final approval, and in this way they try to challenge the system as well. Or one of the cases, this community lawsuit, $29 billion community lawsuit, homeowners lawsuit. There are also several lawsuits going on. This is also a way of just disrupting the system and challenging the system. And the other one, maybe I finish with this, was the whistleblowers, because I believe these whistleblowers played a key role in discovering the truth, which is the data falsification, because starting from 2006-07, they came to the public and they showed that they have been ordered, they have been asked to falsify the data, change the data, manipulate the data behind the computers and so on. And the community members were aware of that, and this brought it to the public notice. And with this also really changed the landscape of this of the shipyard redevelopment project. So for me, the disruption, the key idea of disruption was very present, and the community members and activists have used different tools to disrupt this system and the govern and dominant narrative around the safety of the shipyard.
That certainly came through with the film. I wonder, Michelle, whether you'd like to come in now and just give your perspective on some of the things that Reza's been saying and the film itself.
The film was very entertaining, and to the audience, this is my first time viewing it as well, so it was a pleasure viewing it with you guys. To Steve, I agree. America has lots of issues. And to Jocelyn, I don't know, Reza, if you're aware or if this is the first time this is being announced publicly, because I'm not really sure what our current supervisor. So instead of having a municipal council, since San Francisco is both a state and a city and a county, we have a board of supervisors, and our supervisor informed me that they are indeed going to go in and take soil samples of parcel A. So that's where affairs stand right now, Jocelyn, except because of the pandemic, we in the neighborhood know that a lot of the development and construction work has been going on, even though it's been banned until they get a new order from the city and authorization from the federal Environmental Protection Agency. The assumption is that none of the regulators will come out and check on them. So they're actually moving a lot of dirt illegally out there and not using any of the protection protocols to protect the people. As you saw in that film, the housing is right on the fence line, and it is split between the newer luxury developments and the older traditional public housing. It's a tenuous situation. There's lots of lies going on, and basically all that has ever happened when even their own policies and laws are violated is a slap on the wrist. It is very frustrating. Yes, we only get 2 minutes, and when they don't like what they hear from us, they reduce it to 1 minute on the spot. You know, they'll get halfway through public comments and tell us, due to time constraints, we're going to cut you down to 1 minute or 30 seconds. It goes as low as 30 seconds sometimes. The problem is a lot of the investors and a lot of the new residents that they're looking to attract listen to us as well. The problem is, as I stated in the movie several times, we have physicians, we have radiological researchers, I'm a biochemist by training. We have people, and even the people with no formal education, have been doing this work for so long. We have the sophistication of understanding our situation. We have community organizers and members who've been doing this so long, they're published. So, you know, they have master's and PhD levels of real life education at this point. And it's getting harder and harder for people to explain these things away. But you have so many stakeholders involved in this process, so many of them, that it's been going on for 40 years. Reza is right. It's only been about 25 years, almost 30 years since they transferred the parcels, or attempted to transfer the parcels over to the city. But there's so many people involved at this point, and that plot of land is truly a global investment property. So not even most of the concerned parties are within the state of California, much less the United States. So lots to go through. lots to go
Absolutely.
through.
I think that's a really interesting perspective, and also interesting to get that update on what's happening in Parcel A right now. So the story continues clearly. Serginho, I wonder if you wanted to come in now and just give your perspective, having helped to edit the film and create it.
Sure. Yeah, it was good to watch it again and watch it with everyone. I'd never met. I still have never met Michelle. So, but I kind of feel like I know you, having edited your words and hear what you had to say, and all the other activists as well. To your question on like disruption, to me, disruption kind of like means just not backing down, which we've definitely seen the community not do here. It's kind of showing that the status quo is just not acceptable, and especially when it comes to environmental justice. It's so hard to see pollution, or even when it comes to climate change, but anything environmental is quite often like very difficult to see. So it's very easy to dismiss by agencies or those in power. So therefore, it's really important to kind of like keep on fighting, and that's kind of like what disruption means to me. And it's good to see that this community had been going at it for so long, because it's very easy to get kind of get the feeling that you have to back down if you don't see any changes in your situation. So yeah.
Yeah, great, thanks very much. Michele, I wonder if you would like to say a few words.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think what I want to say is congratulations to Reza and to Michelle for the resistance that her community is bringing to the fore, and obviously also to Serginho for the work that he put into it. I can't comment directly on the issue at stake because I'm not familiar with it, but one thing I can say from a researcher point of view is that Reza is showing us how academia can enter into meaningful conversations with community using the medium of video. And that is more than representation, because what we see in Reza's documentary is not just the representation of somebody else's struggle, but indeed the constitution of a relationship. In fact, today here we have Michelle. So it's not just an academic discourse. And for that, I think Reza should be congratulated. And I found the documentary very powerful. And it's also, I think, just to conclude, a tool that can be used with students, because what we see here, it's almost like a toolkit of how a community can organize around issues of environmental justice, but also against racial capitalism. So thank you, Reza, for doing this.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Michele. That in fact touches on the second question that I was going to ask, relating to the role of documentary films. Firstly, how is documentary filmmaking related to research? What are the relationships there? And secondly, how can a documentary film contribute to a community's struggle for environmental justice? Perhaps, Michele, I don't know if you've got anything else to add about the role of documentary filmmaking, given that you've already done that yourself.
Well, yeah, I will just add one point. There is a long history, unfortunately, especially in the discipline of anthropology, of very extractive kind of documentary filmmaking. So you have the researcher coming into a community, taking pictures, film, and then going away. And you can immediately see that when you actually watch these kind of films. They are very voyeuristic, if you know what I mean. This is not what we are seeing today. It's very different. And it is different not because of the technique. I mean, Reza is obviously a great director, but it's not because of that. It's because of the commitment to the politics. I very much liked something that he did, which I didn't do in my documentary, which was completely avoiding any intervention on camera. And that is powerful because we can actually see how the community themselves are, bringing politics to the fore. And that is very powerful. So it's very different from what has been done in many, many years of anthropological filmmaking. So, yeah.
Great, thanks. And Serginho, I wonder if you might like to comment on this, given that this is your background.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, like Michele I hope I pronounced it right. He definitely had some good points, like when documentary was born, so to say, it was not born at a great time, so to say, and like how it was used as a tool. But luckily, like things have changed, and it has become much more of a democratic tool for people to use. And so when you look at kind of like the similarities to research, to academia, I think it's in the research, just the diligent research, trying to stay objective, even though we know that both in documentary and also in academic research, it can be very difficult sometimes to stay objective. And also, I think like the question is like how it can contribute to a struggle is that it offers a platform. It offers a platform for those that are unheard or quite often dismissed. And a documentary kind of like shows more than just the one issue at stake. I mean, we saw, for example, a couple of news clips in the film, and those are news clips that are from like 1 to 2 or maybe 3 minute like reports on a particular issue, which is part of the grander issue, but you never, if you don't pay attention, you do not know what the larger story is behind it, that people have been fighting for decades. And you would just assume like, oh yeah, they just like build a couple of new condos and they figured out that the soil is contaminated. Oh yeah, that's it. But it's a much, much larger story. And it's also, what documentary also does, it shows that certain stories are a representation of even a larger issue of just how we as human beings have been doing certain things when it comes to policy, for example. So I think it's a very, very, a very good tool and a very, very strong tool that has like similarities to academia, but at the same time, it's also very different to academia.
Yeah, certainly. Michelle, I wonder from the community's perspective, what you think the role of a documentary could be in a community struggle.
So I'm very media shy, by the way, you guys, but it is critical, particularly as we progress into these digital realms. This is how we communicate now, you know, particularly during this pandemic. We have relied on these types of video interactions. Our struggles in communities like mine have become global struggles, as well as other peoples throughout the world who are struggling on their own social and political and environmental issues. These are global issues. This is how we get the message out. This is how we build our community, and our communities are not limited anymore to, you know, the 4 square block that you grew up on. If you grew up on a block, even. We have some unincorporated streets out here in San Francisco that you might be confused. You know, when I was studying in Brazil and they showed me the favelas, I was like, oh, that looks like home. So realistically, this is how we show we all have the same struggles. This is how we build our community. This is how we bring the fight to the power at this point. We are seeming to converge on 2 conglomerate sets of power, one more Republican and one more authoritarian in nature. Both have extreme, they're extremely problematic for people who are not wealthy, no matter which side of that spectrum. And until all of us figure out how to come together, we're pretty much sunk. And documentary film is a perfect vehicle to bring those messages together, to get us to understand that we relate with each other. You know, these are discrete, bite-sized pieces that can be dropped into a Facebook or an Instagram. They're on YouTube and they're fascinating. So it is the tool going forward, I think.
Sure, I think that's absolutely right, and it would be interesting to hear from Reza's perspective as well, the activist scholar, and the role of documentaries for an academic, for a scholar.
Yeah, I would like to make 2 points here. One is this, that why we decided to choose this format for the film. You know, I didn't do any intervention because I was lucky that the case was so powerful and people were so full of emotions and they were expressing themselves so powerfully, so strongly, that they were doing whatever I wished, you know, to see. You know, everything was perfect, and I had to be silent there. I didn't have anything to do. You know, I didn't have anything to ask. So everything was perfect. Just be silent. Just record it. Very passive, and everything is brilliant. And this is also the thing that we discussed with Serginho, that, okay, do we need really a lot of background information or a lot of archival things and other things to feel into it? No, we said that, okay, we do it if it is really necessary to provide some backgrounds. And so everything was really, for me and for Serginho as well, so everything was perfect. They were acting really as I would dream to be acted. So this is the way that really we decided to choose this format and this structure for the film. But the other thing I wanted to say is that this is also a very classic questions of researchers when they are doing research in communities. And okay, how to approach the community? So we normally go do some research, and this also applies to cases that are over-researched normally. So we know that there are some famous cases that everybody runs to do research in these places, and people are really fed up, and people are asked a lot of questions. And then there is also this feeling from the community that, okay, what are these guys doing? They're just asking us questions. They're just coming to our community. And what is the result? What is the benefit for that? So what are they doing for us? What they give back to us in return? And in many cases, nothing really. So we researchers normally are not doing well in this area. That to give them back what enough in return of what we have gained from the community. And I believe the documentary film, I just wanted to mention this, the documentary film is a good thank you for the community, because you let the community to speak in the documentary film. You record it, make a documentary film, and then share it with the community. And the community members are watching themselves in this film. And I was also, you know, during the film screening, I was watching the film. At the same time, I was watching Michelle and her reactions to that. You know, it was really much more interesting than the film itself, because I felt that Michelle is seeing herself and the community in the film. It made me really happy. So the documentary film, because it's a product, it is always there. And of course, in this case, because it is not a commercial production, so I'm doing it freely. I will make it available for the public after 1 or 2 years. And this is also good, really a good thank you to the community that, okay, I have learned a lot, and this is also my thank you for you. And I hope that the community will accept it.
Great. I think that, I mean, in the spirit of reciprocity with our research and giving back to the community, I think that hits the nail on the head. So the third question, there are links here in terms of research related university community research. So it relates to the role of universities, and universities as public institutions have a duty to engage communities and be engaged with communities. But this engagement involves complex issues around ethics, partnership, and effective collaboration. So this film also shows how community members challenge a panel of university professors who've been assigned to provide a so-called independent review for the community. So the question is, what do you think is the best way for communities and universities to collaborate. And I wonder, perhaps Michele could talk to this first.
Thank you for the question, Juliet. It's a very complex question, because when we think about this question, we need to think about the fact that universities are powerful players and communities are not, and most communities at least. So universities tend to picture themselves as a beacon of progressive thinking, but most of them are actually not progressive at all. They are reactionary, they are very conservative. Some of them have deep links with private corporate powers that are actually reshaping our cities in certain ways and not in others. So having said this, I don't think it's very much up to the university as an institution, because I personally think it can be very corrupted, but more about the individual researchers and the ways in which they try to, if you want, challenge some of this corruption from below. So, you can train your students in using video in a meaningful way, in an ethical way. You can bring, communities into the classroom more often. Instead of calling experts, you call community members. When I did my documentary film about eviction affecting Roma people in Bucharest in Romania, I tended to do exactly what Reza is doing today. Every single presentation was done with myself and members of the community in any single place we were going. And that is a way, also with students, that teaches implicitly a different way of doing research. So, I'm a bit pessimistic about the institutional change from the side of universities, I would say, especially in the US, but also in the UK. And that's why I think from below, we can really make some powerful change there, because at the end of the day, the students are, sorry if I pick you up, the Serginios of the future, the ones that are doing the editing, and they are the Rezas of the future. So that is, I think, where we can make a difference.
Sure. Reza, I wonder if you might want to comment on.
Yeah, maybe for this, maybe I can refer to the panel, the review that was provided by this panel of UC Berkeley people. And I have written about that, and I was also very much engaged with that, and I called it a bad practice, from the beginning. It's also a strange thing, because I was in the same institution, and from the beginning I started criticizing. So this is not something that normally scholars do, just criticizing the same institution. But anyway, I did it, and from the beginning, so there were serious problems with that. For example, one was that they were non-transparent at all. I remember that at the beginning, I asked the people who were organizing this panel to just release the name of the panel and how they have been selected. They didn't do that. By mistake, they sent me a document, and then immediately after that, they asked me not to make it public to the community. But I did. So it was also risky, because I was not aware of the US situation. I was afraid that maybe I get some legal problems. But anyway, I did it. I shared it with the community, and I believe that the supervisor, who is now the head of board of supervisors, was a little bit angry with me. So there it was not transparent. So it was not inclusive, because from the beginning they didn't include any community members. So, but the strange thing is that it was UC Berkeley, one of the leading universities in the world. They are doing this bad practice with the community. They even don't know how to approach the community. They even don't know from the beginning how to engage with community, how to respect the community, or they had also little understanding from this community and the issues, the problems, that complexity of issues, that there is a distrust in the community that has built up over 20 years, 30 years. And they were not aware. They believe that, okay, they are experts. They go and say that it is safe, and the community members will clap and congratulate that, okay, thank you for letting us know that it is safe, and go and admit it. These are the things that were happening just in front of my eyes, but were very, very odd for me. So I just couldn't couldn't just, I started writing about them, but they didn't listen to me, of course, as well as the community, other community members. They did their job, and they said that everything is fine, but the result is that nobody accepted it from the community. And you see that how people are angry against this panel of experts, so-called experts. So this is what happened there.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry to do this. I know this is not how you guys traditionally do, but I did want to comment directly on what Reza said. That particular situation, you actually had politicians, academicians, corporations reaching out to Reza to speak for the community and or to be the liaison to negotiate with the community, because these people didn't want to talk to us. And so you had this gentleman who was born in Iran, raised in France, tenured in London, and they're asking him about Bayview-Hunters Point community and residents, like he knows, like he grew up here, just because they didn't want to deal with us. And they were like, oh, you understand us because you're from our institutions. So you go and tell them that they're being silly or stupid for not believing us. You go and tell them that we're the experts and they're not, so they should listen to us. You go and tell them. At no point did they step in and say, we need to come in and actually listen to you and hear what you have to say and take you as the experts on what it's like to live here. And that's all we ever really wanted was, do you understand what it's like to live here? You're dismissing our actual existence by being dismissive. And their response was, having these meetings where we lecture you rebuilds trust. Not having a dialogue, not interacting, not even walking the neighborhood to see what the rest of the neighborhood looks like. It was just, I'm here and I have these 10 million letters behind my name and I'm affiliated with University of California at Berkeley. So you shut up and go back in your hole. That's kind of how it was. And they wanted Reza to present that. They wouldn't even come to us and say that. They're like, well, you know how these people think. If you're dealing with racism, that's the first no you should ever do. Don't tell us how we think and don't call us you people. So thank you very much. But yeah, it was kind of a mind-bending experience, even for us. I know Reza was really frustrated, but yeah, thank you guys very much on that.
Serginho, I wonder if you've got any comments to make on that point.
Not so much, because I think the others have definitely mentioned, made some really good points. And but I like to say, or the thing that I'd say is that from my point of view, if you look at like university research, it's not accessible to just the general public. Like, I don't think that any ordinary person would be like, yo, let me just grab that, like, I don't know, peer review journal or whatever, and just read that. So I think there's like there's a big gap between that when it comes to like the relationship between universities and just regular people, so to say. Yeah. And I think there's also an element of just like not getting too hung up on whether it's methodology or like impressing like another professor or a panel in order to get funding for your research to continue or for something else. So I think there are a lot of things that researchers have on their mind, which prevents them from having like a much stronger relationship with the community.
Sure.
Yeah, and there's also maybe this element of like, oh, they wouldn't understand it anyway because it's difficult. Yeah.
I mean, one of the questions, comments in the chat is, how do you begin to build or gain trust with the local community? As researchers, how do you sort of reach out and build those relations, which, it takes time and, there's a lot of, you need to build that trust over a period, and it's not easy, but it's essential for community-based research, I think. Well, that's great. We've gone through the questions that I prepared. We've got some questions in the chat just coming through, and anyone who'd like to put a question to any of the panel or all of the panelists, please do put that in the chat. We're monitoring it. There's a question here for Serginho particularly. How do you decide what to edit out, and so you involve the community? Do you involve the community during the process?
In this, well, it really depends on what I edit, but in this particular case, it's just kind of like keep in mind what the story is, and that was just like going back and forth between with Reza, like, okay, what is the story? What is this film actually about at its core? And just keep that in mind as I edit. One of the tasks, so to say, that Reza has given me was that it was about the community. So keeping them in mind as I edit. And I think one of the things was just basically kind of keep the story going, not like once you, like when you edit and you see someone's making a similar point, leave the second point, or leave the second person and just keep on going with, which basically presenting new information or presenting the story as it continues. So that's how I basically decided. And then in terms of like how to involve the community, I think Reza has shown it as well to some people beforehand, just kind of like get some feedback on that and then maybe make some changes. That's how I usually work as well, just like show people that I make something about, to show them and see if they agree with it. If there are any factual errors that I can take out. So yeah, that's kind of about, yeah.
Yeah, great. We had a question from Jocelyn that Michelle answered when she mentioned about Parcel A being tested again. There were some other questions within her comment there. Are medical costs being paid of those at fault, by those at fault? And then has anyone admitted their role in the situation at all? So some of the other questions that she brought up.
So I think we in the United States are infamous for the fact that we are the only developed nation that does not have as an aim universal health care. No, nobody is. And the kinds of illnesses you get from this level of toxic and radiological exposures are the hardest and most expensive to treat. So no. I mean, absolutely not on that one, Jocelyn, sorry. And I know she has left. I hope she sees this recording. Yeah, it's not even on the radar. We are trying to get people, and one of the people who was on Reza's panel before is actually doing a biomonitoring project. There's a lot of demands to have those kinds of things looked at, but good luck, unless we do it ourselves, as she is doing. They don't care. So number one, that. Number two, everybody is pointing the finger at each other. Nobody other than the whistleblowers who have stepped up and said, here's what we did, and you need to research this, or I got fired because they did that. Other than that, everybody is pointing fingers at each other. Tetra Tech did what the Navy asked them to in falsifying. The Navy would never ask them to do that. And so it's just a handful of bad actors. The
Michelle,
city, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, so I was going to
Juliet.
say there's a question specifically for you. Is anyone continuing to document the voices and the stories of the community?
Absolutely. One of our, we have two current projects that are residential storytelling for my organization, for the Bayview-Hunters Point Community Advocates. We are doing some storytelling with University of California, San Francisco, and with Stanford University. And we are coupling that work with, we are updating the toxic index. As Reza said, 20 years ago, there were over 300 sites that were emitting some kind of toxic that were considered brownfields, if not Superfund sites. We are going in community members with very little reliance on the state because we don't trust government at this point. we're going in and documenting that, and we are training community members starting in April on how to do GIS mapping so that we can layer these stories, medical histories, known polluters, proximity to resources, all on top of each other in maps that community and policymakers can actually apply to make better decisions. But that's us. There's no one from government who's taking responsibility on that. So hope that helps.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, really interesting. Any other questions? Do put them in the chat and we can read them, direct them to the panelists. I've got a question just for Reza, whether this has given you an appetite to carry on your sort of activist scholar role and make more documentaries.
Yes, definitely. So this was the first experience, to just take a personal journey, before doing that. So Serginho knows that I had really no idea how to make a documentary film. At the beginning that I went to UC Berkeley, then the first thing I did was that I started to go to some courses just so the theory of documentary filmmaking, and the same school that Serginho was graduated from. I went there and attended some courses, learned about documentary filmmaking, different types of documentary filmmaking, and I started watching different documentaries. And then I also remember that the first time that I started recording, this is the video that the film starts. In that time, I even had no proper camera. I was very old digital camera because I went there. I didn't expect that it's going to be a nice protest to record. And I said, okay, it's amazing. Let's start. And I couldn't finish it. You see that I had to use the archival materials because my camera didn't have enough memory to record everything. So I really started from nothing. And then I started recording, and then I had tens of hours of recordings. I brought it to Serginho, and then started to think how to work it. I mean, so this is really a personal journey. So I have now something that we can call it a documentary film, but basically it's for myself, it is right at the beginning. And now when I do think about putting a proposal or something, I normally try to see if I can suggest a documentary film as well, because hopefully I can make the second one and sometimes get the Oscar. I don't know.
Well, there's a question both for you, Reza and Serginho. Can you give us an idea of how long the whole process took? So from when you had the first idea.
Let's see, Reza and I think we met the first time, the very, very first time was like late 2018. I think it was, at a film screening here in San Francisco. And then we had coffee somewhere in February 2019 and basically immediately started working, or not too long after. I think there was a big conference that Reza attended in May 2019. But by then I already had some footage. And initially we just like started to go through the footage together, and in that also Reza kind of like picked up some, or I taught him some like editing tricks and stuff like that. So we went through all the footage, we marked all of the very interesting stuff. I think Reza kept on filming as there were like some things that still continued. I mean, things are still continuing to today. And then we went in hardcore editing mode, I think, towards the end of 2019. I think starting like somewhere October. I was on another project, and that project kind of like started to calm down in October 2019. So this picked up. And then we went on to full editing, basically October to January 2020. And so, a little over kind of like a year, but I think Reza was already doing a lot of research, and he had already filmed before we met in 2018. And I think like some of the research was already conducted before you even set foot here in the United States. I'm not sure, but yeah.
No, that's correct.
Yeah, so it's a long process.
It definitely is, yeah.
Labor of love.
For sure.
So there's a question addressed to all of you. I'd love to know what you all think the future holds for organising with technology. Film has taken us so far. What else can bring organising into the 21st century? So I don't know who wants
I
to...
can say we are really organizing. Our organization is really organizing around us owning our own data, and we are writing our own algorithms on how to do the analysis so that the narrative revolves around our perspective and not everybody else's. And as much as I hate all the data gathering that goes on in the digital world right now, it really is how the world operates. You know, it is actually the currency, the currency of today's world. And I don't think you will ever be in control of yourself and how your life comes out until and unless you understand that and how to own it. So I do think that that's the next step that organizers need to take is be in control of their own data and the algorithms by which it is harvested and analyzed and developed into a story.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there about the data. I don't know if anyone else would like to comment on that question.
I just want to say I think Michelle is spot on, and there are groups even within academia that are moving in that direction. Moving away from Google is a good step away from that. You know, there are many platforms like Nextcloud that we can use, and many groups, I see Michelle nodding, are already using that. I have a good friend and comrade in the USA. She's one of the founders of the anti-addiction mapping project, which is a big project.
We love them. We love them.
They are great, and they are exactly doing what Michelle is saying. They are, you know, gathering data from the community, building up their own ways of analyzing it, and doing counter cartography from below. So it's precisely what Michelle said. Yeah.
Reza, have you got any thoughts on that, or Serginho?
Well, I mean, I think kind of like what I mentioned before, like the documentaries becoming more democratic, with everyone having, well, this has happened already since a couple of years. Everyone, of course, has a phone in their pocket, which can serve as a camera. But if you look at the technology, if you look at just like how people are becoming more and more savvy when it comes to editing and being able to really tell their own visual story. I mean, TikTok is one of the examples that maybe would not come to mind so fast for like people when it comes to like activism and stuff like that. But just when it comes to the technology and just seeing how young people are really tech savvy, really just know how to tell a story using little means, I think we should be very excited when it comes to seeing what will come using that technology in terms of like documentaries or just video journalism or citizen video journalism in the next coming years.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, one thing that I can add to that is that probably teachers in different courses like urban design courses or similar courses also can use this making a small, not documentary film, but small videos, short videos, and as a replacement of these traditional ways of presenting the work. So this, I believe this is also something that in our school, Laura, who was also here, so they are using this because traditionally we say that, okay, it should be a paper or a presentation, a poster or something like that, but we can also think about alternative ways of doing things. And nowadays it's very usual, you can just download an app and make a small short film and use the power of video filmmaking. So this is something also we can use or encourage students from the beginning, even in the undergraduate students, to use these tools.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And the power of video, I think, both in research and in teaching and getting messages across at all levels, I think is really important. I'm aware of the time actually, and we're approaching 8 o'clock. So I think perhaps it's best to wrap up now. And I mean, it's been a fascinating discussion, such a powerful movie, such a powerful story, really inspiring. So thank you to everyone for their contributions. To say thank you to the tech team, Kasia and El Laska, for the seamless tech support. Big thank you to our panelists, Mikel, Michel, Serginho and Reza for their contributions, fascinating discussions. To the Human Rights Festival for providing a platform for the screening, and to you, the audience, for coming along and providing questions and comments. It's been a great evening. We put a link in the chat, I think we're just about to, for the festival, for upcoming events that you might be interested in. So do take a look at that. The panelists will be staying behind for about 15 minutes after the event. So if you'd like to meet with them, ask anyone a particular question, you'd be welcome to stay on the call. But now I'm just about to hand over to Reza, who's going to say a few final words about the experience.
Yes. Yeah, I would also like to thank you all for joining the film screening and panel discussion, to the Oxford Human Rights Festival, to Elizabeth Laskar, thank you very much, and to all colleagues, for Juliet for chairing this session, and other panelists. And also I'm thankful to Serginho, really. He's now a good friend of mine, but he also taught me a lot of things. Thank you. But I just want to finish with the probably four lessons that I would suggest for people. And to the activists, just disrupt the system. So just do it. I believe it is a very effective way to challenge the system. So disrupt the system and find different ways to do that. And for researchers, I would say that use the power of documentary filmmaking. This is really a powerful tool. And to the university professors, or those who understand themselves as experts, I would say that don't be arrogant, just respect the communities. And they know, the community members know many things much better than you. And also to the global, what I call the global, so from the Navy to the EPA, regulatory agencies, cities, all these people are on the side of the powerful. I wrote an article and used the term, I forged the term key holders, because it was inspired by what happened to George Floyd, and inspired by George Floyd's story. And I said that, hey, knee holders, take your knees off the Hunters Point Shipyard's neck. Bayview-Hunters Point can't breathe. And I really encourage them to do so, but I doubt that they will listen to us or listen to me. And with this, yeah, again, thank you very much for this wonderful session, and for joining this event.